Today's speaker is Patty Gallagher. We're really fortunate to have Patty. She's a professor of theater arts, UCSC. Let's see, her teaching interests are feminist theater, Balinese dance, dance drama, Beckett, movement for actors, Shakespeare, clown and mass traditions, and I'm sure a lot more of that aren't here. She's an artistic associate at both Santa Cruz Shakespeare and the Rogue Theater in Tucson, Arizona. And her performing credits include a list that would take me too long to go over, and I recommend you go to her website to look at that list because it's quite amazing. Just as a brief introduction, I first became aware of Patty. I'm sorry it was so late, but during COVID, there was a production of War of the Roses that was done on Zoom that we could all just log into. And of course, we were amazed at Patty's performance there as always. But, you know, rather than people on a stage, they're just a whole bunch of little Zoom heads. And it was amazing that, you know, what do you do when you're on Zoom and someone else is talking? Well, you're looking at stuff, you're checking your phone, you're going up to get a drink of water or whatever. Patty was always in character, just amazed us with that. Anyway, that was an amazing production. We saw her in Shakespeare Santa Cruz this summer. That to me, I'm no expert, but Shakespeare Santa Cruz to me is now at least equal Oregon Shakespeare, if not surpassed. And then just one more thing. Last year at the Jewel Theater, Patty performed a play called An Iliad. And right. And so those of us who saw it were just blown away. She was had the only speaking role and just pulled it off brilliantly. So Patty is really impressive. So Patty, I'm really happy to introduce you to speak now. And she's going to talk about clowns in Shakespeare.
Thank God it's you. My great mentor, Avner the Eccentric, used to say that what a clown should do when they walk on stage is to imagine and discover the audience and to look up and say, thank God it's you, and begin. It's an honor to see so many colleagues that I love and admire. So many of you here have been my guides, my bosses, my inspirations, and yes, my touchstones, if you'll allow me that, throughout my career at Santa Cruz. Thank you also for inviting me to be with you, and that goes for you too, my Zoom people. I know you're there. I see you. I saw that list, and I thank you. I thank you. I come to you as a player, first and foremost. My research practice is embodied. My scholarship manifests itself in motion and gesture, in sinew and sweat. A lot of sweat, I'm afraid. I'm a very dainty person. My talk is going to move from the broad to the specific, from the abstract to the rather personal. My obsession, can you hear me okay? Do we need me to do that? My obsession, thank you so much. My obsession with Shakespeare's clowns is only one aspect of my inquiry into the world of clown. I study, as thank you, Eli has said to you, I've studied Beckett's clowns. I've studied the masked clown traditions of Bali, inspired by my colleague Kathy Foley, and the dance dramas of Java. I've studied French clown traditions and the world of American circus clowning. I found brilliant teachers in all of these areas of clown, and their lessons have given me so many points of entry for understanding, so many tools for understanding Shakespeare's clowns. I'm deeply grateful to those teachers, as well as to my colleagues at Shakespeare Santa Cruz and Santa Cruz Shakespeare and the Rogue Theater and Grupo Malayerba in Ecuador and the Folger and Santa Cruz, California Shakespeare Theater and the Folger in DC. I'm grateful to them for allowing me access to their stages as my playground and my laboratory for investigating Shakespeare's clowns. Those generous colleagues have made me the idiot that I am today. And I am wildly in their debt. Before I launch into Shakespeare's clowns, I want to talk, and the specific clown characters, I want to talk a little bit about the broader concept of clown. From there, we'll look at how and why Shakespeare used clowns as character, as concept, as rhythm shifts, and as secondary heroes in plays for which they are never the title character. I'm interested in what I call the predicament of clown. The idea of those elements of that predicament may involve solitude, poverty, the discomfort of being a stranger in a strange land. But I want to suggest that strangeness is not only about fear and terror, but also about curiosity, amazement, wonder, powerlessness. The clown is so often the little one in the room, looking up at forces beyond unpredictable forces, possibly hostile forces. And the clown is almost always dealing with a feeling of being buffeted by circumstance. The clown character is a series of paradoxes. In the clown's predicament, we see the hyperbolic existence, a version of the oppositional forces that govern human existence. The clown shows in extreme how our brilliance battles with our blindness, how our generosity struggles with our greed, our heroism crashes against our cowardice. Much of the humor provoked by clown comes from the fact that she dwells in this both and, in this place of bothness. So, yes. Yes.
The Zoomers are seeing this microphone in your face, and I want them to see your
I would
face.
rather they. So, at any rate. Really? Okay, then. Okay. All right. Among the contradictions that the clown embodies and embraces are the following: vulnerable and powerful. The clown reveals his most embarrassing side to the world. He mortifies himself on our behalf. But surprisingly, the seed of his power lies in his ability to render himself vulnerable and open. The clown is a perpetual outsider, the stranger in the strange land, the dispossessed, the disempowered, the poor, the misfit, the freak. Having nothing to lose, however, the clown questions the powerful, resists the tyrant, defends the weak. She is the David staring down Goliath. The clown is both solitary and social. The clown, in her connection to the audience, is social, maybe even beloved. But even in the midst of a throng, a clown embodies something that is about humans' existential loneliness, the sense of being bereft. Idiotic and ingenious. The clown often does the simplest possible things in the most complicated possible way, and conversely, the most complicated things in the most ingeniously simple way possible. She never learns, but she resourcefully finds solutions to seemingly impossible situations. Failing and resilient. Another great clown teacher of mine, Ronlyn Foreman, used to say that the clown possesses the gifts of buoyancy and resiliency. The clown faces a universe that is unpredictable, unknowing, punishing. She responds with curiosity and wonder rather than despondency. The clown falls, but the clown gets back up, always. Terrified and brave. The clown is delighted or fascinated by things which would ordinarily be seen as terrifying, and yet terrified of things that are actually quite harmless. Clueless and insightful. The clown fails to see what is exactly in front of her face. She is the last one to catch on. However, she can discover and reveal to the audience that which is hidden. She discovers You'll see this in one of Shakespeare's clowns. She discovers the soul and breath of inanimate objects. She can get an argument with her shoe. She can fall in love with the coat rack. She can be broken up with by a chair. Absurd and logical. The clown's logic is peculiar, odd, idiosyncratic, absurd, and yet, despite that, it is also a logic that is reliable and constant. It creates a coherent worldview and an, albeit oddly, ordered universe. Clumsy and virtuosic. The clown is hapless, blundering, clumsy, but in least expected moments, he becomes fleet, nimble, dexterous. So now we see so many of these paradoxes in many of Shakespeare's clown characters. But before I launch into one of them and look at this clown character as a kind of case study for thinking about clown, I want us to think about some general preliminaries about Shakespeare's clowns. This is quite a Shakespeare audience, so you may know all of these things, but sit down, have another cookie. I'm going to tell you anyway. All right. Clown in Shakespeare encompasses a wide range of styles and functions, from minor parts to full-fledged characters. Shakespeare's clowns represented a spectrum of lower social, of the lower society: servants, fishermen, peddlers, porters, rogues, gravediggers, court jesters. Clown roles were played by comedic actors who were known to the audiences that were watching them. And each company had 2 or 3 clowns, usually a star and maybe a player who could double roles. Clown performance often included improvisation, music, movement, choreography, even dancing. Excuse me. Almost all of Shakespeare's plays have at least one clown. Now, some plays have minor characters with minor roles, and these are often nameless characters, characters who are often cut. Who remembers the great and wonderful clown in Othello? Me neither. They often appear these small roles often appear more frequently in tragedies. These minor characters are often detached from involvement with the plots and the characters. Their appearance, however, can change the mood of the play. It can change the tone, particularly in the tragedies, in which an audience needs a little comic relief. The clowns who have these cameo appearances often signal turning points in the action. They function to comment on the action, to foreshadow events. And some of these characters include, these little cameo appearances include the rustic clown who comes with a basket of figs to give Cleopatra. And in that basket of figs is the axe with which she will kill herself. The porter, of course, we're not in the theater, I can say it, Macbeth. Trinculo and Stefano in Twelfth Night, the gravedigger in Hamlet, the 2 rustics and perhaps Autolycus in Winter's Tale. Now, other of Shakespeare's clown characters have major roles, and these clowns have major functions. And some of the most important functions are a connection to the audience. They are your way in to the rest of the play. These clowns provide audiences with different perspectives on action, characters. Sometimes the clown plot echoes the plot of the main play itself. So some of these major roles, I have them listed, but I bet you can name them. Who do you got? Who you got for me? Who you got? Festy, thank you. Who else?
Bastard and King John.
Mr. and King John is to me like a great clown character. I have a clown. I'll tell you later. All right. Who else? Falstaff. Who else? Touchstone, Dogberry, Lancelot, Gobbo, the Dromios in Comedy of Errors. And again, somebody called out Festy, the major roles, including Lear's Fool, Touchstone, Festy. And I have clown characteristics and non-clown characters. First one I have is Philip the Bastard. Others, I would argue, the nurse in Romeo and Juliet, Polonius, perhaps, parts of Richard III in that 3rd part of Henry VI, part 3, maybe even Hamlet a little bit. Now, scholars talk about the fact that Shakespeare's clown characters depended on the different styles of the actors who were in Shakespeare's company at the time. And two of the most famous actors are Will Kemp and Robert Armin. And Will Kemp excelled as the sort of bumbling, rustic, naive innocence. He probably played the Launces, the Dogberries, Bottom, Falstaff. Kemp's clowns were very much about big body, witty, big-hearted, lacking intelligence sometimes, and language challenged. Armin, on the other hand, was a very different clown. And the great clown scholar, David Wiles, great Shakespeare scholar, hello. The great scholar David Wiles says the sudden appearance of fools in Shakespeare's work at the end of 1599 has always been, and rightly, linked to Armin's arrival in the company. So Armin, with his talent for music and mime and mimicry, probably did what we would call the artificial fools, the jesters. So when I talk about clowns and fools, I'm also saying that the clown role includes the idea of the natural fool, the clown who can't be anything but a fool because of her innate naivete, her newness, her lack of information. She's an idiot in the best, most open-hearted and beautiful way. And I should mention that, as you might guess, my strength, and to be honest, my comfort zone, are with the Kemp roles. Those sweet, honest, open-hearted, sometimes idiots. Proud idiot. I'm happy to be here. So a lot of scholars wonder why Shakespeare's clowns have been under-theorized or underrepresented in scholarship. And a couple of people talk about the fact that what we see in the text does not contain the performance that the audience saw. So, and also the text published in the folios is only a residue of what was a rich and beautiful, full embodied performance. What is left on the page is not representative of the emotional style of the clown. Here's a quote from Wiles, again, I love him. People are often moved to wonder to what extent Shakespeare's actors did justice to the possibilities of the text. The question is rarely framed in the reverse. To what extent did the author's text do justice to the possibilities of his actors? Other thoughts about why we might know a little less about the clown characters have to do with the economy. Often clown characters who are small roles get cut. One scholar wonders if it might be sort of an elitist bias. Clowns are a little less cool to research than the great tragedies. All right, in the next section, I want to list some recurring comic elements of clown theater and then use one Shakespearean clown, Launce, from Two Gentlemen of Verona, as a classic case study where we can look and identify some of those things. So here is an abbreviated laundry list. The transformation or endowment of objects, inanimate objects, problems with objects. An everyday object is used in an unexpected way. Objects have anthropomorphic nature. They become characters, partners, obstacles. Exploration of status relationships. The power structure, the high-low, the I'm little, you're big, I'm powerless, you have power. It's just a starting point. It's really about the vying for status in relationships. We see status reversals in, for instance, King Lear. And I'm thinking now the relationship between the king and the fool. We see status relationships and tussles in a pair of servant clowns, Speed and Launce from Two Gentlemen of Verona. That vying for status is central to both the comedy and the pathos of the play. We see a lot of reinvention and recycling. To create his clown characters, Shakespeare borrowed and borrowed and borrowed from the comic servants of Roman comedy, from abstract characters like Vice in medieval morality plays, from stock characters, from Commedia dell'arte, from the historical figure of the court jester. Another comic element is the element of surprise, a disruption of expectations. The scene sets up an expectation toward one result and another appears. Often music and sound effects. The clown has a relationship to music, often live, a relationship to the audience. This is critical. Often in clown traditions, clowns are often in Shakespeare, we see clowns who are completely connected to the audience, reacting in real time to any signal from the audience. And the audience serves as an ally and a confidant in response to the clown's direct address. We see extreme uses of the body, precision, physical clarity, physical comedy, pratfalls, choreography, special skills. We see clowns who have trouble with language, misunderstandings, misreadings, mishearings, the breakdown of language, the inadequacy of words. Much of the conflict and the comedy in some plays rests on the characters' inability to communicate with each other. Now I'd like to take a look at, everything okay? Now I would like to look at one clown as a case study, which in some ways is a checklist of the comic elements that we are looking at. This is not a polished performance. This is just a way of looking at the comic elements that make the monologue work. So we're going to look at Launce from Two Gentlemen of Verona. And what I want you to look for, I want you to look for the thank God it's you. I want you seeing the audience as an ally, someone to whom I can unburden my heart. I would like you to look at partnering with objects, the finding the inner life of the inanimate object, language confusion, shift between narration and enactment. In the middle of the monologue, Launce realizes that it isn't effective enough to just tell you what happened. You need to understand, so he has to show you. She has to show you. And so she does. Complete vulnerability and high stakes. Now, before I move on, I want to talk a little about high stakes, because I want to tell you the only thing I actually know about acting and clown. And I want to share with you the best acting advice I ever got, and one that is key to every single clown, actually every single performance I've ever done since I heard it. And this is a term called the actually. And the actually is in some ways an adaptation of what Stanislavski called the given circumstances of the play. But I will describe what this is as a term from Aaron Posner, who's a director and playwright. The idea of the actually is something that will clear out all the abstraction, all the fuzz, all the history that we think we know, and gets us right into the moment. And I will use Romeo and Juliet as an example. So we think about Romeo and Juliet, we think about love, and we think about romance, and we think about teenagers, and we think about hormones, and we think about families fighting, and there's a lot. And it's really easy. We've had so much Romeo and Juliet through history that we have to get rid of the residue of Romeo and Juliet. And he actually asks this. You're sitting here at a luncheon, minding your own business, going on with your life. You think tomorrow's going to be the same as today. But if somebody walked in that room today and you took one look at that person and you thought, I would give up my life for you. I would give up my family. I have never known anything before. I'm ready to put away everything because of what I just saw walking in the door. That is actually what the situation is. And one has to go deep into that actually, because when you go and you take that imaginative leap, then suddenly the body becomes electric with possibility and aliveness. And so the actually is something that I have to tell my students about a lot, because when we start doing Shakespeare's clowns, they're like, oh, okay, it's just rainbow suspenders and big shoes, or, they go for the wacky. And I have to say, we're not interested in you being wacky. We are interested in you living inside the truth of that character. It's not your job, or rather, your job is not to be funny. Your job is to take your character so deadly seriously that the audience will find it funny, or more importantly, the audience will give a damn. The audience will see it as true. And the thing that's important to think about in performance is that there's no size of truth. Playing truth doesn't mean you have to Be small and internal in your gestures and your thoughts. It can be as big as you want. Your acting choices can be as big as you want. They can be as big and bold as you need them to be, as long as there's a plumb line to the grounded, true situation of that character, to the actually. And I'll give a couple of examples of some Shakespeare clowns and their actuallys. One thing I think about is the nurse, that prattling, jabbering on nurse who is so fond of Juliet. But if you listen to that speech, embedded in it is her tale of how she lost her daughter, Juliet's age. And all that foolishness and all that fondness comes from a deep place and a wound that cannot heal. And it sets up the future loss that this play is going to unfold for us in a comic way. Another actually would be Lear's Fool. In the first part of the play, Lear's Fool is holding chords and being charming and giving Goneril a hard time and very much in performance mode. Later in the play, when Lear is bereft, Lear is alone, Lear cannot see his way forward, and he's thinking about the decay of his brain due to despair and lack of understanding. That fool, despite the fact that that fool is there with wacky jokes, those jokes cannot be yada da da da. They really are about, like, are you here? I am with you. Hang on, listen. So those funny lines really become a conversation by which the fool is trying to tether Lear back to himself, back to reality. And if that scene is played as waka waka waka, like it was in the first more performative part of the play, we're really losing something about the relationship, and we're really losing something about Lear himself. The Dromios. I think I brought that I'll never be able to find it, but I brought the script. At the end of Comedy of Errors, the two Dromios, the twins who have been separated at birth, reunite. And there's a charming sort of like discovery and a hard-looking one at the other. And of course, it just begs lots of shenanigans and mirror things, and it reminds us of Harpo and Lucy discovering each other in the mirror. Dromio of Ephesus says, "Methinks you are my glass and not my brother. I see by you I am a sweet-faced youth. Will you walk in to see their gossiping?" Dromio of Syracuse says, "Not I, sir, you are my elder." Dromio of Ephesus says, "Well, that's a question. How shall we try it?" Syracuse, "We'll draw cuts for the senior. Till then, lead thou first." Dromio of Ephesus, "Nay, then thus. We came into the world like brother and brother. Now let's go hand in hand, not one before another." And this play, which is hilarious, which is borrowed, of course, from Roman comedy, that ending, what happens in that ending, I get sort of a little verklempt thinking about it. Dromio of Ephesus, no, let's start with Dromio of Syracuse. Dromio of Syracuse knows she's a twin. She's been looking all her life for the other half of her. She has been looking and looking, and now that half is right in front of her. And as she reaches out, she realizes she's finding that lost part of herself. Dromio of Ephesus had no idea she was a twin. She looks as if at herself in a mirror and realizes there was a hole in her heart that she didn't even understand. And she only realizes that now she is whole for the first time. So two completely different, I've been looking for you constantly. Who are you? Oh, it's me. But in that last moment, if that is not an actually that breaks your heart, we're losing something. Now the last thing, Launce. Launce's opening monologue, the first time Launce addresses the stage, the audience, it is the silliest and most ridiculous monologue you could possibly imagine. But Launce's actually is that he is in the middle of the worst and most tragic day of his life. The day he said goodbye to his family, the day he said goodbye to his life, the day he leaves everything he knows behind, and he did it because his master asked him to. So he walks in with his dog and his traveling bag, weeping. And then he sees you. And he knows he can unburden his heart. Nay, will be this hour ere I have done weeping. All of the Launces had this particular thought. I have received my proportion like the prodigious sun, and am going with Sir Proteus to the Imperial's court. I think Crab, my dog, is the sourest natured dog that lives. My mother weeping, my father wailing, my sister howling, my sister crying, our maid howling, our cat wringing her hands, and the whole house in a great perplexity. Yet did not this cruel-hearted cur shed one tear. He is a stone, a very pebble stone, and has no more pity in him than a dog. Why, my granddam, having no eyes, look you, wept herself blind at my party. Nay, I'll show you the manner of it. This shoe is my father. No, this left shoe is my father. No, this left shoe is my mother. Nay, that cannot be so. Not. Oh, it is so. It is though. It hath the worser soul. Shoe is my mother, and this is my father. It's not. It is. Now, this staff is my sister Gallagher. She is as white as a lily and as long as a wand. This hat is Nan, our maid. I am the dog. No, the dog is himself, and I am the dog. Oh, the dog is me, and I am myself. So now come I to my father. Father, your blessing. Now does not the shoe weep. Now does not the shoe say a word for weeping. Now should I kiss my Now come I to my mother. Oh, that she could speak like a wood woman. Now I kiss her. There's my mother's birth. Up and down. Now come I to my sister, not the moan she makes. Now the dog, all this while, sheds not a tear, nor speaks a word. But see how I lay the dust with my tears. So Launce needs you. Needs you. Okay, good. I'm just going to keep back up. So in that monologue, now Shakespeare's master class and what he can fit in there. But what we saw all those comic elements, the language, even the status. We're fighting for status with the dog. Michael knows that I had the joy of doing this monologue with a live dog, with an actual live dog, and talk about like you have to respond to whatever happens in the room. You really okay. Now to close, I want to tell you an insider. Is that you or me? Who's that? To close, I'm going to tell you an insider secret shared by most clowns. We don't want to be clowns. We don't want to be clowns. I can't imagine that anybody who dreams of being on the stage thinks, I want to play the weirdo. I want to play the loser. I want to play the one on the outside looking in, the one who never gets to say the really soaring poetry, the one who wears weird, ill-fitting clothes that highlight the already strange proportions of my pathetic and embarrassing body. I want to wear the makeup that highlights the horrifying contours of my already cartoon-like face. My mother will be so proud. Clown chooses us. Many of us don't choose clown. Clown chooses us. We wanted to be ingenues, but the world has told us unequivocally that we are not and will never be ingenues. We will always be non-genues. Casting is always a hard. And this isn't only Shakespeare. Remind me, if we have time at the end, I'll tell you a great story of my problems getting cast in Javanese dance dramas. That's a whole other thing. But here's the thing. If you can handle the mortification of being chosen by clown, you will learn to sit in the truth, in the actually of these characters, in the yearning, lonely, beleaguered, pure-hearted characters. You realize that you've been given the greatest gift. You step into roles that are about humanity and humility, about love, deep love, and loyalty. You find truth, solace, compassion, and wonder because you have been given the role of the outsider looking in. I'll share a little complaint that I used to hear when I used to work at the circus. We won't tell anyone, but acrobats are whiners. Okay, so acrobats complain so much, and half of what they complain about are, they're like, look at my remarkable virtuosic athletic body. Why do the clowns get all the love? I can do, the clowns can't do what I do. My theory is that it's a different kind of virtuosity. The acrobats have a virtuosity of skill. We look at them and we think, oh, I wish I could be that. But then we look at the clown, earthbound, imperfect, beleaguered, befuddled, and we say, oh, I get that. I've been them. I am them. We look at them and we see our own fragile, weird-looking, aging, limited bodies. And we say, yes. In clown, we see a different kind of virtuosity. We see a virtuosity of spirit, and that we love. And I think Shakespeare's plays are more beautiful and, yes, more poetic because of their clowns, because of the virtuosity of spirit, for their resilience, for their love, for their loyalty. Shakespeare's clowns strive mightily, ridiculously, and ultimately heroically. They try. They fail, they try again, they fail again endlessly. Watching them fail, we think, there I am again. But watching them get back up, we think about the possibility of our own resilience. The beauty of stepping into the predicament of clown is knowing that we are all here together. Thank God it's you. Thank you. We'll be happy to take questions.
Does anybody have questions?
You got. I'm so grateful to be here with you, I have to say.
Kathy.
And then, oh, I mean, yes, it's true when you're a teenager, you want to be beautiful and things like that. But isn't it true the moment that a person gets into the clown, you realize there's much more possibility of creation than, at least within the Western tradition, where you have to keep to the text and keep everything there. But the clown has much more virtuosic range and can depend on whether you're physicality or local. So there's much more. And as soon as people get into that and understand the improvisation with, I think they can start to look for some. Well, Kathy, first of all, the great clown master in the room is Kathy Bull. You need to know, if you don't know that already, this is the great clown master, and someone from whom I've learned so much. So I want to say yes and to that. I really want to say yes and to that because I'm a bit of a poetry fan. So there are ways where, for instance, if I know that an organization that I'm working with is doing a play, and I think, what is that? I'll be drinking a little, that's okay. I'll drink a little, it feels good. Or, do you know what I mean? You know, I have a wonderful, adorable husband, and there was a period, it was probably back 400 years ago in my 40s, 59 now, when I would long for those lady roles, those leading lady roles. And he said to me something that I thought was wonderful. He said, "You're Leo Kottke." I was like, I have no idea what that means, but thank you. He said, "Leo Kottke plays 12-string guitar." He said, "Anybody can play a guitar. You play a 12-string guitar. And I think he was talking about the range. You know, I mean, you know, there are just the thing about clowns, I agree with you completely, but there are other things that clowns have to endure because people see us as them. So they'll say to us anything that they want to, like, "Oh, that was such a good performance. That costume did you no favors." Or do you know what I mean? That there are just all sorts of tiny little, I would say, beautiful, and this I feel like is where the bravery of the clown is, in bearing up the indignities and walking through the indignities in a way that we all do. The reason we love the clowns is we're like, "Oh, yes, that's me. That's me." So I will say, absolutely, you're right. And I feel grateful that my weird combination of training, my incredibly supportive artistic community, they know where I belong. And if my tiny little weird heart is like, "What about?" They know where I should be. And ultimately, I'm very grateful. But yeah. What else? What else?
Any other questions? And,
Yes. Oh,
could I just say that, there's also a Zoom audience, so if you could speak up, so the Zoom people can hear you as well.
Thank you, Patty, for a wonderful talk.
Thanks,
Did not
Lola.
know that the clowns were this complex, and I think I'll never look at a clown again. I mean, I'll look at them in a totally new light.
Thank
I'm curious about when a clown chose you first,
Yeah,
and when you sort of knew that you wanted to be
I wanted to do this.
yeah.
Yeah. I was it was long before my professional career. There were two moments. And one was I was asked, all of the high school girls who were seniors were asked to do a dance about an emotion. I was like, that sounds weird. I don't know, you know, and I did a dance around surprise, and suddenly my body that I give such a hard time to, or I think is so incapable in certain ways, just learned to talk, just had things to say. And that was a joyous moment. The other moment was when I was cast in this high school Spanish play. We did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Of course, I knew I was going to play Snow White. No, I played the Wicked Witch, and I said, "Espejito, espejito en la pared, tiene la mano." And I was like, I like being the bad guy. So I think there were those were just a couple of moments where I thought, oh, I like it here. I like it here. Yeah. Yes, hello.
At one point, you mentioned in passing a court jester. How would you describe the difference between a jester and a clown?
Well, I feel like it goes back to the concept of the natural and the artificial fool. So the natural fool is a clown. Sorry, yeah, the natural fool is actually a clown who doesn't know what's going on, is naive, doesn't know what's happening, is ingenious in other ways, but can't really choose their outsiderness. A fool, often called an artificial fool, puts on jesting, puts on affects, puts on performance as a way of being sort of a wry social commentator, a wry sort of pointing to, and I think the fools have a clearer sense, the artificial fools have a very clear sense of how power works in the world. Whereas the artificial fools are sort of buffeted to some degree by by fortune, although they have many of them have a deep inner core, a deep ethical core that I admire. But the artificial fools are those who will circulate around the party and observe people and comment on people, and they're all licensed in many times. They're all licensed to say anything. So they move in the world.
Thank you so much. That's so great.
Thank you.
So you said that the poem never really the central character in Shakespeare, but isn't the central character in a movie or play that you know of that where it really is brought out that the poem has all this depth?
Yeah, what I'm hearing things, I'm hearing things. What are they? Yes?
Mary Wives of Windsor, the fool is the central character.
False stop would be
Being
the
there.
being there, I think is great. That is a fantastic suggestion, being there with Peter Sellers wandering through the world, just being in the right place at the right time.
And maybe Forrest Gump.
Maybe Forrest Gump, yeah, yeah.
What was that last?
Forrest Gump. Oh, Forrest Gump. Yeah. What else, my friends? I swear I'm looking out. I saw the list of people who are coming. And I both got so intimidated and so grateful to see in this crowd, people whose work I love, people who I admire. So I'm all, feel all shy. All right, what else, friends? Anything, David?
Yes, lovely talk. Thank you.
Mm.
Curious, are clowns more or less universal because they're part of myths and stories and, gods, etc.
Yeah.
So I imagine clowns existing in the theater.
I
don't know.
I think they're everywhere. I think they're
Yeah.
everywhere. There's a wonderful book by John Towson called Clown, and he writes about clown in so many different cultures. Annette Lust also writes about the different kinds of clowns and fools and mimes from so many different cultures. The great Kathy Foley writes about clown traditions in many parts of the world. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, Monkey King.
Yes.
So it depends on the religion. In Christianity, the same clown who's migrated across from India becomes the vice and is attached to the hell.
The monkey.
So-
I said that's why they're-
I mean,
they-
the Latin clown in Southeast Asia, things like that, positivism, other things, Buddhism, and also, because they put the two pieces together, as you have a high character separated, it would then the clown, but Western does not allow the clown to live out there, and the best poetry. Religions and cultures, absolutely.
David, it's funny you mentioned the monkey thing, because there was one, both. Sorry, yes, sorry. Monkey, because there was one season, I had an all monkey season. I played Hanuman, the Monkey King, and then I also played Kafka's monkey in an adaptation of Report to the Hat. All monkeys. I think that's it. Let's see if you have anything else. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank
you. Well, thank you all for coming, and be sure to take whatever food is left and take it home.